I'm going to call this meeting to order. Due to the COVID-19 health emergency and in order for the Board of Education to conduct its business, this Board of Education meeting is being held via video conference and streamed live via YouTube on the district website at www.ebnet.org. If you just give me a moment here, I will post this information. In addition, members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the URL as indicated on the screen now and the meeting ID and password. Upon joining the meeting, your participation will be muted to ensure that there is no disruption to the business being conducted by the Board of Education. We'll now proceed with the roll call. Mrs. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Carangelo.
Here.
Mrs. Chu.
Here.
Mr. Sismar.
Here.
Mrs. Guas.
Here.
Mr. Hong.
Here.
Mrs. Lax.
Here.
Mrs. Reese. And Mr. Winston.
I am here.
We have a quorum. So we'll be rising for the Pledge of Allegiance, but I do want to make a statement. After the Pledge of Allegiance, we will take a few silent moments to reflect on yesterday's attempted insurrection on the United States Capitol. With that being said, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 760 Route 18, East Brunswick, New Jersey. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Start Ledger, the Home News and Tribune, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotaped meetings are not edited for any purpose. Individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening, everyone. This is the reorganization meeting of the Board of Education. It is held the first board meeting in the month of January, and it is the time at which newly elected and re-elected board members are typically seated. Due to the pandemic, we administered the oath of office earlier this week to the board members that were elected and re-elected. Before we proceed on the agenda, the first item of business is the appointment of temporary chairperson. So may I have such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Becker.
Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lax. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, as I was saying a moment ago with regard to administering the oath of office, we typically would administer the oath of office at this time. But since we administered earlier this week, I did want to share with the board and members of the public the individuals who did receive the oath. So let's just take a few moments.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernardo Giuliana. I am the School Business Administrator and Board Secretary for the East Brunswick Public Schools. Today is Monday, January 4th, 2021, and we are here to administer the oath of office to Susanna Chu. Susanna, raise your right hand and please repeat after me. I, Susanna Chu,
I, Susanna Chu,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the government established
in the United States
in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
And I do solemnly swear
And I do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office of member
for the office of member
of a Board of Education,
of the Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all duties of that office
all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lori Lax will now be administered the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Lori Lax,
I, Lori Lax,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
And I do solemnly swear
And I do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office of member
for the office of member
of a Board of Education,
of a Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all duties of that office
all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
What? Over there? That's really bad.
Today is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. And we are now preparing to administer the oath of office to Mark Carangelo. Sir, please keep your right hand raised and repeat after me.
Yes, sir.
I, Mark Carangelo,
I, Mark Carangelo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear
and that I will bear
true faith
true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same, and to the governments
and to the governments
established in the United States
established in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
And I do solemnly swear
And I do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I do possess the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office
for the office
of member
of member
of a Board of Education,
of a Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all duties of that office
all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
You are now officially a member of the Board of Education.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll do my best.
Congratulations to Mrs. Lax and Mrs. Chu and Mr. Carangelo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next order of business is nominations for board president. At this time, I will accept nominations?
Hey, Bernie, just a quick question in procedure. Ask a procedural question.
Go ahead.
In the event that there are more than one candidates running for a position, is there an opportunity for those candidates, although I didn't see it specified in the bylaws, for them to perhaps present their value and what their intentions are, and lack of a better word, a campaign speech to help shape our opinions if two people are running opposed?
Mr. Jacoby?
I hear, I have background. Somebody's got,
Yeah, somebody needs to mute. Kids.
Daniel D. Fonseca needs to mute. Thank you. I couldn't hear. No, so under Robert's Rules of Order, what happens is you take a series of nominations. They do not have to be seconded. And then after the nominations are solicited, the temporary board chair, Mr. Giuliano, will call a roll for each of the members. People can speak when their name is called. They have the right to speak then, but there's not a debate or a dialogue in this temporary thing.
And that can't be altered through motion, Mr. Jacoby?
Not that I'm aware of, because you got your bylaws say you follow Robert's Rules of Orders, and that's the Robert's Rules of Orders, where there's not a debate over it. It's just a nomination to seat a chair. But again, each of the members, when they speak, can, each member has the right to say why they're voting one way or the other way.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Lax, you're recognized.
I can go ahead with my nomination.
Yes.
I would like to nominate Vicki Becker for board president. Vicki is the personification of grace under pressure, as she has undoubtedly shown through her leadership this past year during these unprecedented times. An incredibly dedicated board member for 20 years, she has always made the needs of the district her highest priority. She is consistently attending PTA meetings at our schools years after her children graduated, making sure to stay in touch with the ever-changing needs of the district parent. This past summer, she scheduled weekly meetings to ensure that our COVID readiness plan for school opening could best meet the needs of all of our staff and students. It is obvious to anyone that meets her how much Vicki values education. She is passionate about this district, works tirelessly to not only maintain our great rankings, but to constantly strive to raise the bar of excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts, having a strong personal connection to all three. You could say that Vicki has always been the mother hen, being the first welcome call a new board member receives, meeting for coffee, not during COVID, of course, reviewing agendas, and generally answering questions about all areas of boardsmanship. But I also see her as a lioness, bravely protecting and advocating for her EBPS brood. Being a leader is not easy. As the head of a consensus-seeking board with 9 individuals with sometimes differing opinions who do not necessarily agree on every issue, Vicki encourages us to share our views, discuss, and even disagree in an open and respectful manner. I look forward to her continued source of strength at our helm this year as we hopefully embark on a path back to normalcy.
Thank you, Mrs. Lax. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I will now accept a motion to close the nominations.
I move.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
I'll second, Jack.
second by Mr. Winston. The nominations are now closed, and we'll proceed with a roll call vote for Vicki Becker as board president. The order of the roll is in alphabetical order. Mrs. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Carangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
No.
Mrs. Guas,
I'm proud to vote yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
No.
Motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Becker.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to help lead this board. This year will be about transition of leadership and mentorship and consensus, and working together to support Dr. Valesky and his team, our administrators, our teachers, our students and parents to weather the rest of this pandemic, and God willing, to deal with what public education will look like when it is over. I'm proud to be a part of this group. We agree to disagree. I have great respect for everybody in here. And together, we do wonderful things. I'm very proud to be one of 9 board members in the East Brunswick Public School Education. Thank you. And now, Mr. Giuliani, I do the rest of the meeting.
You may certainly take over at this point.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is nominations for board vice president. And Mrs. Chu?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Lori Lax.
Okay,
Okay, and I nominate Lori Lax for board vice president. First, I want to wish Lori a happy birthday. I think you just turned 30, right? So I don't know if I have that a little off or not, but happy birthday. Lori is a lifelong resident of East Brunswick and is a product of East Brunswick Public Schools. Her husband, Mike, also grew up in East Brunswick, and this is a family that has given so much to the community. They have both been active in so many community organizations and foundations. I just cannot list or mention them all. But if you've been around town, I'm sure you've run into them or seen them around. This is a family that loves this town, loves this community. And to quote her husband, she works in the shadows, never seeking glory or a pat on the back, as she is always there for her family and others. So well said, Mike. In my 6 years on the board, though, I've gotten to know Lori, and I've gotten to see Lori's passion and dedication to the children of the community. She's an advocate for excellence in academics, arts, and athletics. She's a strong advocate of all the initiatives we have to ensure that our children have a safe and secure environment in which to learn. She knows that great schools are not just made up of buildings and books. This is a people business. Great schools are created by great people, and she's always looking for ways to show appreciation for the hard work of the administrators, the teachers, and the support staff. We've been facing these unprecedented challenges, and while we may not always agree on all the issues, as Lori stated earlier, she, along with many others on the board, understand that we can only move this district forward by working together. And I really do look forward to working together with this entire board. Thank you.
that was lovely, Susanna. Are there any other nominations from the floor for vice president?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to congratulate our newest members to the EB Board of Education. Mark Angela, I wish you nothing but best and most success in your role, and I'm very happy to have you on board. So thank you for volunteering for this. As well as welcome back and congratulations to our incumbents, Susanna and Lori. I'm happy to see you back, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. The nomination for the vice president position should not be taken lightly, especially in these unique and challenging times when we are facing issues specifically surrounding the COVID-19 virus and its impact on the educational community currently. In a lengthy and at times spirited conversation with our board president, Vicki Becker, in December, we focused much of the conversation on the elements of change and direction and remaining mindful of the much uncharted territory which we are now facing and will be facing. Soon, hopefully, we will begin to feel and see the benefits of the vaccine and its impact, and then rejoining the path back to something that looks like normalcy. While I clearly asked President Becker what she feels she would be able to do from her position regarding this, she corrected and informed me of the limitations of her position. She felt that my lack of understanding of her role was an impediment, and she was probably right. And well, she emphasized the role of the board is not to run the district, but to assure that the district runs well. One couldn't help but feel the executive role must abandon these traditions that may have shaped the passive role in which Ms. Becker described, but instead evolve to take a stronger and more proactive approach in navigating these uncertain waters. President Becker further went on to say that she feels that what she does and what she has done in her tenure on the board, sitting as an executive role for approximately 25% of those 20 years that she's been here, has been effective and well served to this district. And I would agree with that. I believe, based on the circumstances and the area in which she came from, I think she's done an exceptional job based on those days. She has indeed effectively served her position well, and with that, I am comfortable saying that her capabilities, though, are limited and admitted by her, and she will need an experienced person beside her who possess certain sets of skills acquired in their professional and their private life. It is for those reasons I nominate Mark Sismar to the position of Vice President. Mr. Sismar, a career and retired law enforcement professional, has been called upon many times under varying situations to lead through crisis. The very merit of his career lends itself to pragmatic, well-thought-out solutions to some of the most difficult challenges. His efforts have earned him many awards and recognitions throughout his life, and continues his life working in a leadership role in school security for neighboring school districts. As committee chair of the Security Committee, Mark has been instrumental in formulating the effective strategies that have, to date, protected our most cherished assets, our children, our staff, and our administration. While others on this board bring certain skills to the position, we are in desperate need of skills now that Mark Sismar and his track record proudly speak to. President Becker will be continuing to do what she has done so well for many years. She will continue to organize this board, set the agenda, and form the culture that is so important to the success of this district, which are the responsibilities of the president's role. Mr. Sismar's role as vice president would be a perfect symbiotic complement to Mrs. Becker's strength and would no doubt help the superintendent and his staff move and evolve the district through the recovery and onto the future and transcending where we were 12 months ago. It is unfair to expect Dr. Valesky to bear the sole burden of the demands now placed upon us, and he deserves to have the most qualified individuals leading this board so he can run the district and we can be assured that this district runs well. It is my hope that Mark accepts this nomination and this board looks beyond the scope of figurehead leadership and embrace the hard fact that this recovery will have to be a huge team effort with the most qualified individuals at the helm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That was lovely. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Bernie, do you see any hands that I don't?
I do not.
Okay. Then can I please have a motion for closing nominations of board vice president?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Heather. Matt, I need to ask you a point of order
Yes.
as we have two nominations for the role of vice president. Do we take a separate roll call for each person in the order they were nominated, or do we take one roll call where people indicate if they are voting for Mark or Lori?
You take a separate roll call based on the order of the nominations. So there'll be a roll call first for Lori Lax, followed by a roll call for Mark Sismar. If either one of them gets the majority of the membership, this evening there's 8 members. So you'll need to have 5 affirmative votes.
Okay.
I have a point of order question for Matt. The bylaws and all, I do understand that that is impossible to do with the virtual sessions. Does state for these votes during this election process that these votes are done by a piece of paper and in private. I see now that we're moving that to a more public forum, and was wondering if there's an alternative to that to adhere to the bylaws.
Well, Mark, the bylaws, this came up several years ago. The board has always done it publicly. The vote has to take place in public. The bylaws do permit for a paper ballot, but I don't, you're asking the wrong person because I barely can turn Zoom on. I have no idea how you can do a paper ballot in a Zoom world.
Nor do I. I'm just acknowledging the bylaws.
Yeah, so the
and
bylaws.
wondering if there were workarounds.
No, because what we've done in all the years that I've presented East Brunswick, this exact issue came up. They've done it publicly where they do a roll call following Robert's Rules of Order. There's a nomination, and then there's a vote on each of the people who've been nominated. And in terms of the bylaw doing a paper ballot where the board secretary would collect it and then call out who has the votes, I don't know physically how that could even be accomplished in this virtual format. So I apologize, but you know.
I don't need it, but so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're stating that we're abandoning the bylaws by what motion?
Bear with me. I don't think we're banning the bylaws. I think what we're doing is.
Holding the bylaws,
What's that?
upholding the bylaws.
Yeah,
The bylaws are specific to this topic.
Bear with me.
Matt, while you're doing that research.
I'm just bringing up the bylaws right now.
The only means by which to collect a vote other than a voice vote, being that we are virtual, is for each board member to individually message that to me. However, the other thing is that upon, and Matt, I'm not sure if this is permitted, but upon receipt of each of the votes, each is read aloud as to the individual and individual making the vote and who their vote is for.
You're correct.
You could do it that way by using the message, but it's important to keep, if people are going to be writing their vote down, the only person who should be collecting it, knowing who it's coming from, would be the Secretary Bernardo Giuliano. So I don't know how to use the chat feature to be.
But in order to do that, would be absolutely important that in selecting the chat feature, that it is sent directly to me.
Well, wait a minute. Is this something that we get to vote on, whether or not we wish to?
I'm trying to get your, by the way, your website's not opening up right now.
Do we need to take a short recess, perhaps? Or is this something, before you even research it, is it something that the Board of Education gets to decide? Who gets to make the decision whether we do it the way we have been or the way Jeff is suggesting? We have a suggestion from a board member.
So Vicki, you have bylaws. So I'm just trying to get to the copy of the bylaws, but the East Brunswick Board of Education website is not responding.
Bernie, can you help him out here, please?
I will do that, President Becker. I'll take care of that. We apparently have a technical issue on our website.
Great.
Yeah, it's not my computer because I just tried my phone as well.
So what I mean is I want to give Jeff the proper guidance here. Does Jeff need to make a motion that he would like to motion that this is something we have once we find out what the bylaws say?
No, so Vicki, if the bylaws say that in a contest, and I don't have the bylaws memorized, I do recall several years ago, the bylaws do permit for either written ballots or voice vote. And I just want to read what the bylaws say specifically before I opine on something without being able to look at it.
And I'll ask again, Matt and Bernie, do you need a short recess to research this, or?
No, if I can get a copy of the bylaws, I can look at it and tell you in 2 seconds. The problem is that I can't access your website to get the bylaws.
Okay, I just want to make sure that this is handled correctly.
Bernie, can you get on the website?
I'm trying.
It seems to be down.
Yeah, I just tried also.
So good. It's not Matt Giacobbe's incompetence with the computer, which it usually is.
It can be that, but it might be also something else.
President Becker,
Yes.
Juliana, Mr. Giacobbe. It appears that Blackboard, our service provider for our website, is suffering some kind of a data attack. And so the website is not reactive right now. They're working on it, but we may have to resort to looking for a paper copy of the bylaws.
I'm in the process of attempting to get an alternate view of the bylaws. So if you just bear with me, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to access it on my iPad, my iPhone. I can't get it.
Yeah, you will not be able to get it on any device. The actual website itself is physically not reacting. Right
Are
now.
you in touch with Nick?
I am.
Okay, thank you, Victor.
Matt, I have been able to locate a copy, and I'm doing I'm going to send that directly over to you.
All right, great. You get it by email?
I'm going to send it to you by email.
Terrific. Thank you, Bernie. Tell me when you send it. Did you send it, Bernie?
I'm waiting for it to finish sending.
I was just able to get into the site. It might be back up.
I'm not able to get in.
Is somebody trying to get into the meeting?
I got him. Hold on. So your bylaws say voting shall take place by a written ballot after nominations are closed. Board members will be provided a blank piece of paper and shall write the name of the person they wish to see elected on the piece of paper. The ballot will be tallied by the board secretary, and the person with the majority vote of the members of the board president and constituting quorum shall be elected. In the event no candidate receives a majority vote of the board of members present and constituting quorum, the procedure shall continue until someone receives a majority vote. So I think that Mr. Giuliano's suggestion of people using the chat feature and individually emailing Mr. Giuliano, the board, I have an echo, the board secretary, that would comply with the bylaws. You guys could, if you guys want to go the other way, when you don't have a contested vote, you guys have always typically done it where I haven't seen a contested vote before, where you've done it by roll call publicly. But Mr. Giuliano is going to have to publicly state who got the majority votes. So your bylaws do say that. You could have a vote to suspend your bylaw and conduct it under Robert's Rules of Order, because your bylaws also state that you do follow Robert's Rules of Order. So typically what we've done is followed Robert's Rules of Order, which is just a nomination and a roll call vote. But in this instance, you guys would have to have a motion to suspend the bylaws if you're not going to do it this way.
Bernie, I think Barbara Reese may be trying to join the meeting late. Have you received a call from her, or?
I don't have anyone waiting to come in. I know Zoom is sometimes a little touchy.
Okay.
And so what I suggest to individuals is that they just keep trying.
Okay, so please advise as to what we are going to be doing.
Based on your bylaw, what you're going to be doing, as Bernie suggested, each individual board member will have to use the chat feature. The only other way you could do it is via email to Bernie individually. I don't know if people have the ability to have separate computers and do that.
I would rather not do an email,
Okay.
Matt, because email service might be impacted. So I
Oh,
think
okay. Yeah, because your email took a long time to come through.
yes, it did.
So if people go down to the bottom of the screen, in the middle, it'll say share screen, and to the right to that, there's a box that says more. You click on more, and there's a chat feature.
Hurry.
There's a chat feature. You click on chat,
Click on chat.
and what you'll see is there'll be a chat will come up. It says to, it says everyone. Do not click on everyone. If you click on the everyone button, you'll see there's a list of people. All of you will be listed. You want to
Click on
just click
Bernie.
on Bernie Giuliano's name, and then you can type your message, and you would either write Mark or Lori. And then you'd hit send. The moment you type it, it gets, so I'll do a test. Let me do, Bernie, tell me if you get this. I'll do test.
Guys, with all due respect, I have no idea how to do this. Come on. What are we doing?
Okay, Mark, do you see the chat button on the bottom, or do you want me to call you? I'm sorry, I can't hear you,
You
Mark.
can
You're
talk me
muted.
through it right now.
Okay, so there's a chat button on, are you on a
Yes, yes.
laptop? Okay, so if you hit the chat and you look
Gotcha.
over to the right, you
Yeah.
will see on the bottom, it says to everyone.
Click on that.
Click on that and it will be,
There'll be a list
you will
of
get
people,
a
Mark.
drop-down menu.
Well, I got a problem because it just went out on me. Come, help me. Get back on my minutes. Yeah, you can.
Well, you know
How do
what,
we
we
get
have
back to the,
go
how do I get to
down-
it back to the conference?
down here. Just have that.
I don't see it.
The chat, wait, the chat, 1 second.
My daughter's helping me, by the way.
I know, Mark. I know. And this is your first meeting. Don't worry. This
Not
is-
to,
Sound
It's-
menu.
all right,
And
hang
many,
on.
many of us have our kids as our tech support, so that's in many households.
All right. So I got Bernie right now. I just want me to type. All right, gotcha.
And you type
Type-
your name. and
Type
then-
a name and hit enter. It's a first meeting and this is a hard thing to do
It says
anyway.
privately, it doesn't say, oh, enter, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just hit the enter on the.
I did
screen.
it.
Okay, so everyone should do that and send it to Bernie Juliana. Bernie will then tally the votes.
Bernie, did you receive my vote?
I've got a bunch of them coming in now, so
Okay,
just bear with me, please.
absolutely. Thank you.
So Bernie, you shouldn't announce anything until you have, there should be 8 votes.
Members of the public, this is not for you to vote. So please refrain from texting me.
Mark Colangelo, you good?
I'm just
Okay.
validating. I just want to validate before I finalize, but I do have 8 votes and I'm just going to double check. So just bear with me, please.
Absolutely.
I apologize for my incompetence in this.
No
Well,
incompetence. It's your first meeting and most of us couldn't figure it out. I had someone pointing behind my back where it was also. You're doing fine.
Thank you, Vicki.
Okay, folks, I have a tally. And I'm going to read the vote, board member by board member, and who they're
No, Bernie,
voting.
Bernie, you don't read it board by board member. You just say there are 5. If you read the bylaw, you count, the ballots shall be tallied by board secretary and the person with the majority vote of the members present constituting quorum shall be elected. So you have 8 votes.
I
You
do.
have to determine which one of the 2 nominees have the majority votes. If one of them has 5, you will announce that, or, let's say I'm one of the nominees. Matt Giacobbe got 6 votes. He's got the majority of the vote of the quorum present, and therefore that Matt Giacobbe is nominated as vice president. That's how you'll handle it.
I do have a majority vote. The majority vote of 5-3 is in favor of Lori Lax. Matt, I do believe that the public also does have a right to know how the board voted under Robert's rules.
Right, your bylaws don't say that. Yeah, there's no preclusion for you saying who voted for who in your bylaws, so you can say who voted.
I'm going to announce, just going down the list. In favor of Lori Lax, we have Mrs. Becker, Mrs. Chu, Mrs. Guas, Mr. Hong, and Mrs. Lax. In favor of Mr. Sismar, we have Mr. Colangelo, Mr. Sismar, and Mr. Winston.
I want to congratulate Lori Lax, and I want to commend Mark Sismar for always wanting to step up to the plate and be a vital part of this board and leadership, and commend Jeff for nominating him. And again, congratulations, Lori. I look forward to working with you this year as we will all work together. Before we go on to the rest of the agenda, I also wanted to welcome Mark Colangelo to our board. Welcome, Mark. We broke you in tonight with technology. Now, if somebody could tell me how to get rid of the chat feature from my screen, I'd appreciate it.
So if you go in the chat feature, if you have the chat feature up in the upper where it says chat at the very top,
Yep.
over to just to the left of it, there's a little carrot pointing down.
Close. I
Click on
got
that,
it.
hit close.
Okay. If anybody else needed to know how that worked, there you go. I also would be remiss if I did not say something about Todd Simmons. Todd Simmons is not with the board this year. Todd was on the board for 15 years. He gave a lot of himself to this district, the students, the people who worked for it. He was a very, very good board member. He was very knowledgeable. He served on every committee. He was president for many years. He was vice president for many years. And we want to recognize his awesome accomplishments to this district and wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors. Thank you. We now will proceed with the rest of the agenda. We are on item 9, which is the adoption of New Jersey School Board Member Code of Ethics. What I would like to do before we do a roll call vote on this, we did this last year. I would like each of us to go around and say we will take turns. Of course, it's by Zoom, so I can't point to people or say we're going to go around in the order of the table. But I will go first, and then basically we'll go in the order of the roll call, the alphabetical order on the agenda. If somebody does not wish to read one of the 10, just say pass, and the next person can go ahead. But I think it's important that we read these out loud. Number 1, I will uphold and enforce all laws, state board rules and regulations, and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes should be brought about only through legal and ethical procedures.
Mr. Colangelo, you're next.
Pass.
Okay, Mrs. Chu, could you read number 2, please?
I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools which meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing.
Mark?
I will confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them.
Heather?
Ernie, could you turn my camera on? It's telling me I can't start my own camera.
Okay, why don't we come?
Right. Never mind.
Go ahead, Heather. We have your beautiful voice.
All right, number 4, yes.
Yes.
I will carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run.
Lee Wu, please, 5.
I will recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promise nor take any private action which may compromise the board.
6, Lori.
I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interests or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends.
Next would be Barbara. So Jeff, please, number 7.
I'm going to pass. I'm unable to actually bring this document up right now on my system, so I'm going to have to pass.
Okay. I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools, which if disclosed would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. But in all other matters, I will provide accurate information and in concert with my fellow board members, interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its schools. Lori, would you please read number 8?
I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer.
Number 9, I will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties. And Lori, will you please finish with number 10?
Sure. I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on such complaints at public meetings.
Lori, I'm sorry, Lori, you're kind of muffled.
Sorry, I'm reading from one screen. I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on such complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution.
Can I please have a motion for this code of ethics?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Lori, second by Li Wu. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. I'd like to combine items 10 through 15 on the reorganization agenda. Can I please have a motion for that?
So moved. Lori.
Moved by Lori, second by Mark, the new Mark. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. I understand now we're up to Board Member Prohibited Act and School Ethics Training by Matt. Matt, something we all look forward to every year.
I'm sure you do. So the board just read the code of ethics. So I have you'll see right here. This is a PowerPoint presentation that we emailed to all of you so that you guys have this at your fingertips. But let me just start out by saying that the code of ethics, which you just read, mandates how you operate schools. And schools are a different and unique form of government as compared to, say, the municipality. And if you noticed when you were reading through the code of ethics, it talks about that you work as a board, you don't take action without board authority, you work through the school administrator. It's your job to make sure that the schools are well run. You do not run the schools. That's why you hire Chief School Administrator Dr. Valesky. You set policy and you make sure that Dr. Valesky follows that policy. And I've used different analogies in the past. Basically, you guys are the coaches on the sidelines. You're setting the plays, you're setting the policies, and then you're giving it to your quarterback, Dr. Valesky, and saying, go out and make these plays. And you can call in an audible, but at the end of the day, it's Dr. Valesky who makes the day-to-day decisions. And if you remember, one of the code of ethics that you just read says that you will vote on the best qualified personnel based on the recommendation of the chief school administrator. So Dr. Valesky makes the recommendations on who to hire, and then you vote on them. The reason that the law is designed this way is because many board members have family members, i.e. their children, enrolled in the schools. So you guys have awesome responsibilities. You set by far the biggest budget in the town. You are educating the kids of the town. You set the policy for the entire district to operate and for all personnel including the chief school administrator, to follow. You establish what is the curriculum. You implement all of the different laws and regulations the state of New Jersey sets forth to be followed. But the day-to-day operations of the district lie with the chief school administrator and the other personnel that you have, the assistant superintendents, Bernardo Giuliano is your business administrator, etc. Now, there's a body in New Jersey through the Department of Education. It's called the School Ethics Commission. And the School Ethics Commission oversees and governs the School Ethics Act. And they do two things. They issue advisory opinions or they render decisions. And they render decisions if a board member is accused of unethical conduct. So Bernie, could you go to the next slide, please?
Yes, sir.
And the School Ethics Act, it mandates that members of the Board of Education avoid conduct which violates their public trust or which creates a justifiable impression that the public trust is being violated. It identifies prohibited acts that would be conflicts of interests, and it includes the Code of Ethics of school board members, which you just read aloud and adopted by a roll call vote. Could you go to the next slide? Okay, so no school, and I'm going to just summarize these and give you quick examples. No school official or member of his immediate family shall have an interest in a business organization or engage in any business transaction or professional activity which is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of his or her duties in the public interest. So the example here would be, you couldn't have Matt Giacobbe has a law firm. I couldn't be a board member and be the lawyer serving the law firm. That would be a conflict because I have a financial interest in my business organization. So the most important thing is if you're involved in any businesses, you work for a business that's doing business with the Board of Education, you have to recuse and cannot vote on it. And you cannot attempt to have the board hire your employer or do business with your employer. That's what this stands for. Next one, please. No school official shall use or attempt to use his, it says his, but it should be his or her official position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment for himself, members of his immediate family, or others. So as a board member, you can't use your position to get unwarranted privileges for yourself or your family. It's not limited to employment. It's also limited to special treatment for your children, special dispensation in terms of grades for your kids. You're here as a role as a board member, and you have to really separate yourself from your family and not take anything that would be an attempt to use your position as a board member to gain an advantage for your family or yourself. Next, please. No school official shall act in his official capacity in any matter where he, a member of his immediate family or business organization in which he has an interest or has a direct or indirect financial involvement that might reasonably be expected to impair his objectivity or independence. So to summarize this again is saying you cannot act in your official capacity if it involves you or a member of your family or a business organization in which you have an interest. So you can't take a vote on, your spouse has a business that has applied to do work for the district. You could not vote on that. That would be a violation of this. And at the end of the day, what I will tell you is, as we go through these, every one of these, there's case law on this from the School Ethics Commission. So what I advise board members is, if you ever have a question, you ever have a concern, there's nothing that's urgent that you need to take an action on. If you're worried about it, recuse yourself. Don't vote on it. But generally, if you have a question before a meeting, because you know what's on the agenda, talk to Dr. Valesky, talk to Bernie Giuliano, and they can reach out to me and I can give you guidance on if it's a matter that you need to recuse yourself from rather than vote. The one thing that the School Ethics Commission has found over and over and over again, it's those board members who have the foresight to ask the question. If they ask a question and I give you wrong advice, you're going to get a pass. The School Ethics Commission said you took the advice of legal counsel and you voted on a matter even though you shouldn't have. But generally speaking, there's case law out there, so we can give you guidance on it. The other thing that the School Ethics Commission does, if you remember at the beginning, one of the first slides, it says they render decisions if somebody files an ethics complaint, but they also give advisory opinions. They will not give an advisory opinion on something that you've already voted upon. But if you have a situation that's coming up that you think might be unethical or might create an ethical conflict, we can seek an advisory opinion from the School Ethics Commission, and in writing, they'll tell you whether or not you can vote. And a number of years ago, we had a board member who officiated games as a referee through the NJSIAA. And this board member asked a very interesting question that there was no case law on. And what was that question? The question was, I never officiate games in which East Brunswick participates. However, I've been asked to officiate state tournaments and playoffs in which East Brunswick might qualify. Is that a conflict? We wrote to the School Ethics Commission. The School Ethics Commission rendered a ruling that no, it's not a conflict. You can officiate those games because that's at a state level and you normally preclude yourself from it. But if the East Brunswick girls soccer team makes it to the state finals and you're one of the officiators there, you can participate. So that's an example. Go on, Bernie. No school official shall undertake any employment or service, whether competent or not, which might reasonably be expected to prejudice his independence of judgment in the exercises of his official duties. Again, what this is suggesting is that you can't take any type of action or employment or service that could be expected to prejudice your independence of judgment. This one comes up often. There's questions of whether or not a board member can simultaneously serve as a member of a PTA or an education foundation. I've actually written and gotten advisory opinions that a board member can serve on a PTA or an educational foundation without violating this. But what the School Ethics Commission has ruled is that if something comes forward from the PTA or the educational foundation in which the board member is undertaking that service, he or she has to recuse themselves from any vote involved in that organization. So again, if you want to get involved in some type of service or employment before you embark on it, if you think there could be a problem, please talk to Dr. Valesky or Mr. Giuliano, and then I can write for an ethics advisory opinion so that you can avoid any type of ethics violation. Next. This one says no school official or member of his immediate family or business organization in which you had an interest shall solicit, accept a gift, favor, loan, political contribution, promise of future employment. Basically, if you expect that it's going to influence you to vote in the discharge of your official duties. Simply put, this is the quid pro quo prohibited act. Somebody can't say, hey, I'll make sure I hire you if you get my spouse a job in the East Brunswick district. That would be a violation of this. You can, it does say you can accept political contributions, but there can't be any promise for a favor conferred on the person making a political contribution to you. Again, an example, I'll give you a political contribution if you hire my child to be a teacher in your district. That would be a violation of this provision. And frankly, that would be a violation of criminal law. So you can't, if anyone ever approaches you and asks you to do something in exchange for something, the best answer is, thank you, I'm not interested. Next, please. So this is no school official shall use or allow to be used his public officer employment or any information not generally available to the members of the public which you receive or acquire in the course of and by reason of your office or employment for securing financial gain or helping members of your immediate family. Now, if you recall, in the code of ethics that you read aloud, one of the most important items for board members to remember is that almost every meeting we go into closed executive session. And in closed executive session, there are certain items that you can talk about. So for example, contract negotiations with the union, the acquisition of potential property. But the one thing that you talk about almost every meeting is something involving personnel or students. And those are confidential, highly privileged communications that can't be revealed to anybody ever. And so under both state and federal law, you're mandated to protect the privacy rights of students and personnel. And this is one of the prohibited acts where board members get in trouble when they disclose private information, especially if it's done to assist any business organization, etc. An example of this would be the board is looking to acquire a piece of property, and you go out and you tell your realtor friend about it, and somebody starts a bidding war to help secure an advantage for a friend or a family member. So this is very important that when you have access to confidential information, which you do often, you've got to protect that with the strictest of just protect it outright. Next, please. No school official or business organization in which you have an interest shall represent any person or party other than the school board or school district in connection with any cause, proceeding, application, or other matter pending. So basically, what this law says is that you have one master, and that's the school board. You can't be involved in a litigation that's against the school board upon which you're a trustee and a member. And you can't take any action that would in any way jeopardize the district that you represent. What it says is this provision shall not be deemed to prohibit representation within the context of official labor union or similar representational responsibilities. So you can be a member of a union, but we'll get into later on what you can't do in terms of votes if you are a member of a statewide union. But here, you can't be adverse to the school district. And the biggest area where this comes up is where board members get involved in litigation against the school district. There's one exception to this, and we will talk about that briefly, which is you have the right to represent your own family in litigation against the school district. And what does that really mean? It means that if you have a child who is an IEP and you need to go through due process or go through mediation to secure the rights of your child so that they get a free and appropriate education, that is not a prohibited act, and board members can advocate for their family in that instance. Next, please. So this is a general, says no school official shall be deemed in conflict with these provisions if by reason of his participation in any matter required to be voted upon, no material or monetary gain accrues to him as a member of any business, profession, occupation, or group to any greater extent than any gain could be expected of any other business or member. So for example, this would be you have a son and your son plays on the East Brunswick's football team. And there's a whole group of young men or women that are playing on the East Brunswick football team. And the board votes to buy new helmets and new shoulder pads. You're permitted to vote on that because your son or daughter who's playing on this team is not gaining an unreasonably expected advantage greater to any extent than any other kids. Where you would have a problem in this is, let's hypothetically say that your daughter was a world-renowned oboe player, but there's no other oboe players in East Brunswick. And East Brunswick Orchestra doesn't have an oboe, and you push to get them to buy an expensive oboe and you vote on it, and the only person who's going to use that oboe is your daughter, that would be a violation of this act. Next, please. So no elected member shall be prohibited from making an inquiry for information on behalf of a constituent if no fee, reward, or other thing is promised. And so basically you're an elected official. People will come up to you, they'll ask you questions for information. You're permitted to get it. What we suggest though is that whenever somebody asks you something, what you want to do is notify Dr. Valesky of it, and generally Dr. Valesky will respond back to the inquiry. But if somebody asks you about, you know, is East Brunswick going to have a string quartet concert coming up, you're permitted to say, yes, I'm aware that they are, or I don't know, I'll find out for you. I'll talk to Dr. Valesky and get back to you. So as long as nobody's making a promise or seeking some type of favor from you, you can inform your elected, your citizenry that you're representing if they make an inquiry to you as a board member. Next. So this is the one I talked to you about before. Nothing shall prohibit any school official or member of his immediate family from representing himself or themselves in negotiations or proceedings concerning his or their own interest. So this is the case where I was talking about if you had a child who had an IEP, you have the absolute right to represent yourself and your family before this board. Next, please. This one's not applicable to you. This is members of the school board, so you can skip that. So right now we're going to be finished going through the slides because the next slides are the code of ethics. The one thing that I wanted to alert you to is that the biggest area that I have seen with ethics and ethics inquiries are if you have a family member who is a teacher in another district, or if you're a teacher in another district. There's many rules about your participation in negotiations and whether or not you can vote on a contract. As you're aware, Mr. Giuliano has sent out a questionnaire to you over, I guess, email, Bernie?
Not yet. The board hasn't received it yet. They'll receive it after this meeting.
After this meeting. So if you remember, in the last several years, we gave it to you in paper copy for you to fill out, but given the virtual world that we're living in, you're going to get it to you via email. And we'd ask that you fill it out. And what we do is we go through and analyze it for you to make sure that you have no conflicts so that you can vote on any of the collective negotiation agreements and or participate in the collective negotiations process and or participate in grievances, etc. The one area, and I can tell you, I know that none of you guys have any family members that work for the district, but the ultimate preclusion is if, for example, say you're a board member and your spouse is a teacher in the district, you would be precluded from participating in negotiations and voting on the actual final collective negotiation agreement. You'd also be precluded in dealing with any type of grievances, etc. So again, we try to be proactive. That's why we have you fill out these questionnaires. And let me just summarize and finish up by saying there's nothing that is urgent that needs immediate action. If you have any questions or concerns, we can give you guidance, and we'll put our guidance in writing to you so that you can rely upon it when you're making a vote coming up at a future meeting. The one thing I can't do and the School Ethics Commission won't do is they won't correct something after you voted on it. So it's always better to read the agenda, and if you have a concern or worry, please make sure that you reach out to me so that I can provide you guidance so you don't violate the School Ethics Act. And that's the training for this evening, Bernie, because we're not going to go through the rest of it since we already read it.
Matt, thank you very much. I do remember that last year you did caution us about several things about the use of social media in regard to ethics, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the use of social media, there's two laws that govern boards of ed. Generally, there's the Open Public Meeting Act, which we're at right now. We're having an open public meeting for the public to witness the business of the board, to make public comments, etc. And another law that impacts boards greatly is called the Open Public Records Act, OPRA. And so all communications, documents, etc., unless they're a privileged document, are public records. And so what I tell board members is it's imperative that you only use your official East Brunswick email address for board business. You do never want to use your business email address for board business, because if an open request comes in and they want all emails, say from Vicki Becker, and she's been conducting board business on both her East Brunswick account and on her business account, she'll have to produce those business emails. And I can tell you that your employer will not probably be very happy with that.
No, I will be unemployed.
Yeah, I actually had a case a number of years ago where somebody was at a major bank and they were using their bank email for board business, and the bank ended up terminating the employee for doing that. It was a violation.
Matt, what about texting?
So texting is also a public record. So if you are texting or emailing things, make sure that what you're writing, you're comfortable with, because if somebody gets a hold of it, which they're entitled to under the Open Public Records Act, it's a public record. So my suggestion is that when you text or email, you should be professional, it should be appropriate, and you should only be using, and you have to maintain it. I don't think that texting is really appropriate, other than if somebody says, I'm going to be late to a meeting and they text you, that's one thing.
Information.
Anything official should be done on the East Brunswick EBNet email. And the reason being is that when an open request comes in, it goes to your business records custodian. That's Mr. Juliana. Mr. Juliana does not have access to your cell phones. He doesn't have access to your text. He has access to the email systems, and he can comply with the open request. But if you're conducting business via text and somebody asks for your texts, guess what? You have to produce them. And I've been in many, many Oprah cases where they have asked for board members to produce texts related to it, and the records custodian has to go and have you produce your texts. Not a very positive thing. The other very important thing, if you remember, I said there's two laws that govern boards of education. The Open Public Records, there's many laws, but the Open Public Records and the Open Public Meeting Act. One thing that is absolutely imperative is you as a board have incredible power when you come together as a board. But you can only come together as board at an open public meeting. And the law mandates that open public meeting is published with at least 48 hours advance notice so that the public can come, watch, participate, speak, and you can only conduct business at one of those meetings. Where boards and elected officials get themselves in trouble is they start emailing one another in group chats via email. Well, you have a 9-member board. If 5 or more members of a board are engaged in email communication via email, you are having a public meeting in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act. And the individual who handles violations of Open Public Meeting Act is this kind of powerful female down in New Brunswick. It's called the Middlesex County Prosecutor. So you don't want to do that. So it's imperative that when you're emailing, do not use group emails, email each other individually, or if there is a need to email everybody, my strong suggestion is you use blind copy. If you have to send out an email to the whole board saying, we have to cancel the meeting because of a snowstorm, you would blind copy just so that people don't accidentally start engaging in an email communication that could be deemed a violation of the Open Public Meeting Act.
And Matt, one more thing about social media, about a platform like Facebook or Instagram. We are entitled as individual citizens, residents, people, to have Facebook pages or Instagram pages. Where is that line where we have to separate being a board member from a private citizen on social media?
So everyone has the right to use social media. Right. That's the way you communicate. That's the way you're permitted to do that.
Absolutely.
The one thing that you can't do as a board member is you can't speak on behalf of the board in your role. So if you're on social media and you're talking, the School Ethics Act has ruled that you have the right to use it, but you have to say that this is my opinion, not that of the board's. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. Now, this used to come up a lot in like letters to the editor in the newspaper. That's kind of gone by the wayside because no one uses letters to the editor of the newspaper. It's now more on social media. So if you're taking a position, let's hypothetically say you're taking a position on the candidate for mayor in your town. You're permitted to do that. There's nothing illegal about it, but you have to say that you're speaking on your own behalf, not on behalf of East Brunswick Board of Education. The one thing that's very, very, very important is when you're using social media, and we've been involved in litigation in this on behalf of different elected officials. When you use social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, and I'm not a social media guru, but let's use Facebook, for example. Once you start using social media and you're talking about items that could be related to the board, et cetera, you've created a public forum. And so the one thing that you actually cannot do once you've done that is to start blocking people, because once you've blocked people, you've created a public forum. And if you've blocked people, you are now exposed to individual liability for violating their First Amendment right of free speech. So it's really better, frankly, that the district use one Facebook, one Twitter, you have an official thing, and the board communicates with Dr. Valesky, and the board and Dr. Valesky put out the message that the board wants on the board's official schools, Twitter, Facebook, social media platforms. If you want to use Twitter, social media, et cetera, for your own things, you're free to do that. That's not a problem, but just be very cautious. You're doing it on your own behalf. You're not doing it on behalf of the board. And be very mindful that once you're doing it, you're creating a public forum and you're an elected official. If you start blocking it, you're going to have a problem. As you know, it occurred with President Trump. He was using his, I think, Facebook or Twitter account when he was running for office. And then when he came into office, he continued using it and started blocking people. That was ruled, you can't do it. You created a public forum. It's open. You're not allowed to block people. So just be mindful of that. And if you have questions or concerns, again, talk to Dr. Valesky, talk to Mr. Giuliano. They'll get in touch with me. And I'm glad to give you guidance on that so that you don't step into a First Amendment lawsuit unwittingly.
Thank you so much, Matt. Does anybody else have a question for Matt? Mark 1?
Yes, thank you. Matt, if there's a possible ethics violation, who's responsible to notify the School Ethics Commission?
So the School Ethics Commission, if there's an ethics violation, the School Ethics Commission can be notified by an individual board member, a member of the public, a school administrator, or a school teacher could file ethics charges. I've been involved in ethics charges where a school teacher filed it against the board member. I've been involved in ethics charges where the whole board votes to have the board president file ethics charges on behalf of a board member. And I've been involved in cases where one board member versus another board member have filed ethics charges. I've also been involved in cases where members of the public have filed ethics charges against board members. So the bottom line is an individual has to file the ethics charges and sign the certification when they file School Ethics Commission. The one thing that's important for you guys is if ethics charges are filed against board members under New Jersey state law have a right to be indemnified for your role as a board member. So if a citizen files, I just had a citizen recently file ethics charges against one of my board members. We immediately notify the insurance carrier, and the insurance carrier provides coverage for the defense of those ethics charges. Ethics charges don't have damages like a typical lawsuit. There's findings, and the School Ethics Commission can dismiss the charge, or they can send it for a hearing before an administrative law judge. And ultimately, the penalties are they can reprimand you, censure you, suspend you, or remove you from a Board of Education. In my 26 years, I've only had 2 board members removed from boards of education for their conduct. One of them was not so long ago, and it involved with the school. To give you an example, the board member had a social media blog site and was blogging about employees, the union, all kinds of stuff, and saying, "I'm doing it under the First Amendment. I can do it." The NJA hired an attorney, and the attorney had represented an individual that was being blogged about and filed ethics charges. That board member was removed from office. And the other one that I was involved in a number of years ago, which the board itself filed ethics charges against the individual board member. It was a board member who was releasing confidential information, very, very sensitive information, dealing with an employee who was going through a very serious medical condition, and thought it was appropriate to talk about it on, at the time, it was an NJ.com blog. And he identified himself on the blog. He was removed from the board because he violated one of the most sacrosanct rules is you can't disclose confidential information.
And one more question on the, there was a case at Asbury Park in 2004. You gave us a bunch of cases last time. And the board member was removed for directing a staff member to remove a recommendation that was on the agenda.
Mark, you're
Does that
breaking up a
also
little.
apply if a board member asked the superintendent to remove an employee?
I'm sorry, Mark. Mark, I couldn't understand. You were breaking up.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I couldn't understand anything you were saying. You were talking about Asbury. I don't have the Asbury Park.
Can we try again? If it doesn't work, I'll try it another time.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can. So basically, what happens is, I don't know the name of that case, the facts of that case specifically. I'm glad to take a look at it. If you want to, send Dr. Valesky an email, I can take a look at the case. But the School Ethics Commission has all their cases online. If you go to the School Ethics Commission, there's a whole series of cases year after year after year. And we have a database at my firm. I can research cases for you, but I don't know that case specifically, so I couldn't answer a question for you.
Yeah, if we can, I'll ask a question later. It was in the training we had last year. You gave us a booklet of examples from Strauss Esme, and it dealt with removing something from the agenda.
Yeah, I just don't know that case. This year I did it this way.
I can my question offline.
All right, Mark, the reason I did it this way without doing it like I did last year, all the cases was I try to make this a little bit more user-friendly in this virtual environment with a PowerPoint.
Matt, quick question for you.
That works. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Jeff.
Okay, good. Just a real quick question. When you were talking about social media and the "in my opinion" clause and not that of the district, if approached on a specific topic that has come up in session where there was a vote made and an individual asks you to discuss my vote and my reasoning, am I in violation of anything?
So the action is already taken. So let's hypothetically say there's a big bond. You're going to do the fields, and you voted no. And board members wanted you. Members of the public were asking, well, why did you vote no, Mr. Winston, on not redoing the fields? Well, I think that if somebody at the grocery store asked you, why did you vote no? And you could say, I didn't think it was fiscally responsible. I don't think that there's any preclusion from you on social media saying the same thing, because the vote's already taken place.
So I can support my position should it arise.
Yeah, if somebody asks you that question, you could answer that question. You have the right yeah.
Thank you.
Now, the one thing, Jeff, what I'd say is, let's hypothetically say the board voted, 5-4 to vote, and you were in the minority on something. You wouldn't go out and say the board's a bunch of, idiots for voting that way. They shouldn't have voted that way. That would not be appropriate. But if somebody asks you the question, why would you vote no on redoing the fields, Mr. Winston? You can say, I didn't think it was fiscally prudent given these difficult times, etc. You would have the right to justify why you voted, just like you would at a public meeting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, man.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Bernie, do you see anybody?
I see no hands raising.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you again, Matt. Greatly appreciated. Good questions, board members. Okay, now we're on to our regular agenda. Dr. Valesky, can we please start with the superintendent's report?
Thank you, President Becker. Congratulations to our new and returning board members, as well as the new board leadership. I would like to wish everyone a happy new year, or maybe I should just wish everyone a new year with my sincerest hope that it is happy, and our greatest hope that we can look back on 2021 and remember it as our recovery from the pandemic and a full return to in-school operations. As I stated my message to the EB community earlier today, I was astonished to watch the events at our nation's capital unfold yesterday on live television. I get to look at these situations through the lens of a parent and as a superintendent. And I watch very closely how my son reacts to events like yesterday. This very unique and isolated environment we find ourselves in amplifies my responsibility and our collective responsibility as a school district to help our students process what they are witnessing on the national scene, in addition to dealing with a worldwide pandemic. Let me simply restate what I messaged earlier. Our teachers are committed to creating safe spaces for the discussion of these recent and unsettling topics, especially as events will likely continue to unfold over the coming weeks. Above all, we want our students to feel safe and know they are supported by the entire East Brunswick Public Schools community. As we remain physically disconnected, we have provided a variety of high-quality resources for parents and guardians to help guide discussions at home. They are located on the homepage of our website for your convenience and accessibility. As always, please contact your schools or my office directly if you need assistance in connecting with any of the vast resources within East Brunswick Public Schools that are available to our students and their families. The East Brunswick High School annual gift giving drive, along with the Student Council Class Council drive-through toy drive that took place on Saturday, December 19th, was a great success. It was estimated that about 2,000 toys and $2,000 in gift cards were collected, in addition to gifts provided to over 25 needy families in the area. 35 to 40 bags of gifts and clothing went to the Ozanam Family Shelter in Edison. 10 gift bags went to a group home in Edison, and 10 bags of coats, hat, gloves went to the Elijah's Promise in New Brunswick. 10 families in East Brunswick were also the recipients of gift cards. Thank you to the students, advisors, and high school staff for their time, efforts, and generosity in making this event a tremendous success. The learning model forms are now available on Parent Access for students in the elementary schools as well for students in Hammersholt Middle School. If you do not submit a new form for your child, they will automatically continue in the remote learning model. The learning model forms for elementary and Hammersholt Middle School students only will close tomorrow, January 8th at 3 p.m. Learning model forms for students in Churchill Junior High School and East Brunswick High School will be available through Parent Access beginning January 19th. Later tonight, I will have a discussion with the Board of Education about our preliminary plan to return to hybrid instruction. Even after tonight, the volume and frequency of COVID infections will be a major factor in my recommendations on when we finalize our return to hybrid instruction and if we need to adjust any return dates because of newly discovered safety concerns. As I committed in Tuesday's message, tomorrow's message at 3:30 p.m. will provide updates for the community based on information we have at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. And now we have a presentation on block scheduling proposal. Dr. Valesky, would you like to introduce us, please?
Yes, ma'am. So we had previously communicated with the Board of Education about a proposal for block scheduling. Dr. Boley and her team had put together a video that we share with the board members and we'd like to share with the community. Over the last 2 years, members of the administrative team have been investigating block scheduling as an option for scheduling for our students. And obviously during the pandemic, as we closed our schools and went to full remote back in March of 2020, block scheduling was really the option we had to consider for delivery of instruction of our students at home. As we've begun to look at our return to instruction and what the vision of East Brunswick Public Schools will look like post-pandemic, we believe there are a lot of merits in considering a block scheduling or modified block scheduling format. So I'm going to let Dr. Boley lead the presentation discussion. I do want to clarify that we have invested a variety of stakeholders in the accumulation of data for this presentation. And one important piece of this would involve negotiations with the East Brunswick Education Association. The current contract does not have provisions for the execution of block scheduling. We currently are within, the parameters of negotiations, but this would be a consideration. I just want to make that clear. So Dr. Boley, do you want to go ahead and begin the presentation and include any members of your team in the administrative team, the broader administrative team, to help support that.
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Valesky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joyce Foley, Assistant Superintendent of Academics. And joining us this evening is Nicole Tibbetts, Director of Curriculum and Student Achievement, Trudy Atkins, Director of Professional Learning, Evaluation and Assessment, Michael Vanella, Principal of East Brunswick High School, and Matthew Hannes, our new Principal of Churchill Junior High School. Thank you for allowing us the time this evening to share our proposal to shift to block scheduling at Churchill Junior High School and East Brunswick High School in September. We believe this schedule will help us to meet the social, emotional, and academic needs of all of our students. This schedule shift will provide only 4 longer instructional periods daily, allowing for more instructional time, leading to more time for students to apply the skills that they just learned, and more time for teachers to provide individualized attention and support. This schedule will result in a decrease in the daily workload for our students. This schedule will provide a standalone homeroom period, offering time during the school day for classroom community building, social, emotional learning activities, and so forth. And with this schedule also comes an extended midday lunch period, allowing students to decompress, see their counselor, or chat with friends. So I'd like to show a brief video overview and then be happy to answer any questions.
In an effort to maximize instructional time for students, block scheduling is being recommended for Churchill Junior High School and East Brunswick High School for September 2021. This video will provide an overview of the block scheduling proposal. This visual depicts the previous 9-period day schedule last used in March of 2020 prior to the COVID-19 break, and the proposed new block schedule. As you can see, fewer classes in a day would help to balance the workload for students and teachers, personalize the school environment, provide extended learning time, increase the amount of time students are engaged in their learning, provide opportunities for social and emotional learning. Over the school year, the total number of instructional hours will continue to exceed the minimum number of hours per course required by the New Jersey Department of Education. Reorganizing instructional periods into longer blocks ensures that our students are still receiving the in-depth instruction needed to meet or exceed the New Jersey student learning standards, while maximizing opportunities for social emotional learning and reducing student stress. There are many benefits of block scheduling for a student's social and emotional well-being. This scheduling model reduces stress while still offering a broad and rigorous curriculum, provides a daily standalone homeroom period for community building and social emotional learning. Fewer class changes will improve school climate, discipline, and cleanliness. Because teachers will see fewer students each day, they will get to know each student better and be able to offer more individualized support. Provides for a longer student lunch period. Students will have fewer classes, quizzes, tests, and homework on any one day. There are many benefits to teaching and learning with block scheduling. This scheduling model provides more time to teach, coach, assess, and reteach with less wasted time transitioning. Fewer startups and endings result in more usable instructional time. Encourages teaching in depth and promotes higher level thinking skills. Allows students and staff the ability to focus on only 4 courses per day. Longer class periods encourage teaching with a variety of instructional models. The 82-minute period would be structured in a way to provide direct instruction of the day's topic, ample time for students to use that knowledge in meaningful ways, and an opportunity for the teacher to assess which students are understanding the material and who may need additional support. During the bulk of the class period, students will be engaged in various ways with some examples listed here. This time allows the students to apply the skills or strategies just learned into context. Successful implementation will require ongoing support and professional learning opportunities for staff. Some of the initial steps may include revisions to curriculum, pacing guides, and teacher planning to ensure the additional time is utilized effectively. Thank you for your time and consideration of this proposal. We look forward to discussing this topic with you further.
Thank you, Mr. Juliana. Question?
Any board members have any questions? Lee Wu?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Bodie and your team. But I do have several questions for you. So, but not every one of maybe that's my concern. So number one, so you have 4 classes basically for each day for AB class. For 2 days, you have 8 classes. So normally, or at this moment, we have 9 periods for each day, which means we have the options for teach 9 different subjects. So if we switch AB scheduling, so I don't know if we can provide students enough options for their choose or selectives. This is number one. Number two, so we have the block scheduling AB's format. How can you handle the year-long class or the AP class? They need longer time. And number three, so if a student is sick out for 1 day or few days, and the make-up effort will be huge, how can you or the teacher can make up the absent student for his missed class? And the last one is, so now we have almost 82 minutes for each class. So that means this will cover a lot of material. So I don't know if every student in one class can keep the pace. Some students maybe can handle the material easily, but some students, they may not keep up the pace. And for those students, if they cannot keep up with the space, they will have emotional stress. How can you help those students? So that is my concern or questions.
Thank you, Liwu. Good questions. So currently we do have, as you said, the 9 periods and one being lunch. So we wouldn't be reducing any instructional periods. As far as if a student was absent, the teachers are still implementing the Canvas learning management system. They could still, if they're well enough at home, follow along in the instructional model or log in when they're feeling better. We feel that the extended period will allow the teachers the time to formatively assess student understanding of the content and the time to provide that individualized feedback and attention to small groups of students. Mike or Matt or Nicole, anything to add to that?
Thank you, Dr. Boley. I would just add, as far as the pace goes, that currently in a 42-minute class, the pace is very, very fast. And so we actually think one of the benefits of this is that it does allow more time for the pace to be more appropriate for students so that they have a little bit more time to comprehend and analyze and practice and get support from a teacher before they have to quick leave and run to their next class. So we actually think the change in pace is a benefit in a block schedule.
Or maybe actually use different wording, the content. So I don't know, if this 82 minutes class will cover the same amount of content or material as the 42 minutes class. So if we give students too much material in one period or one block, so some students may not get it, and then they will accumulate his or her frustration and will accumulate his or her emotional stress. That is my concern.
So generally right now, because the classes are 42 minutes, what happens is the teacher, introduces the lesson, has a small activity to get the students up and running, And one day we'll really do a lot of the direct teaching. And because the class is wrapping up so quickly, they can't really move to the application and give a lot of practice within the same day. So you're talking about, for those students, they have to be able to retain what the teacher taught them the day before with limited practice, kind of live right then when the teacher is working with them. And so we really actually, again, same thing. And I'm sure that Dr. Vanella and Mr. Hannes can add to this as well. We actually think providing the time to apply immediately while the teacher is still right there and you haven't now done 8 other classes since you were taught that skill is a bonus and a benefit to this model.
Yeah, building on what Ms. Tibbetts said, the other part about it is to make those synthesis connections, if you saw in the presentation that Dr. Boley had, to be able to provide and apply to higher level thinking in that longer period is appropriate. And the feedback loop is so critical. When you have a longer period, that teacher is going to be able to make that personalized learning, going to be able to flex group those kids in instruction and provide that focus and support in the areas that are needed. And I do think in the long run, the students will benefit from that feedback loop as well as that personalized learning.
Mr. Hong, to speak to that example, recently I was in an 8th grade English classroom. The English teacher started the lesson, and we're using not quite an 80-minute period in the current situation we're in, but started the period by allowing students to review an assessment that the students had recently taken and look at the feedback that the teacher gave. The teacher then asked the students to reply to her with examples of the feedback, with what they was to ensure that the students were understanding the feedback correctly. And then they had a differentiated activity that allowed them to focus on different aspects of the feedback. For example, it was an English class, so one group of students might work on learning how to blend quotes. Another might learn how to find other supportive evidence in their text. And while that's going on, the longer period allowed the teacher to get to those individual groups to provide that differentiated instruction. And then as Dr. Vanella just said, with that feedback loop, at the end of the period, the synthesis time, the last 15 minutes, the teacher came back to regroup with the class, and the students completed a Google form, which then shared an example of what they learned in the lesson to ensure that they were understanding those objectives for the day.
Lee Wu, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Absolutely.
For this block scheduling, let's say for one class, just say English class. So in the day A, and Monday, he will have Monday and Wednesday and maybe Friday. So under our 9-period current format, maybe he will have English class on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day. So how can you evaluate the impact, basically this kind of gap between the teaching for the same subject? So how can you handle this kind of issues?
Are you asking that if the student's not seeing the teacher every day?
If yes, that's my, for the same subject. So it's not going to be taught every day. So if on every day, they will help students remember well or learn well, but you have 1 day gap.
That's correct. So we feel that the extended learning period would allow for deeper learning and more critical thinking and more application of the skills and strategies that are being taught in the class period. And again, to reiterate what's been said prior, that feedback from the teacher and that personalized, individualized attention would be available during the longer extended period. As Mrs. Tibbetts said, with the current schedule, the periods are so quick, and taking attendance and settling everyone down and teaching the lesson. And then there's a very short time for any kind of application and closure. Anything else to add, team?
If I may, Dr. Boley?
Certainly.
Now I'm in the professional development realm, but for many years I served as the science supervisor. And prior to coming to East Brunswick, I did teach in the AB block for 19 years at my previous district. And I taught AP biology, I taught honors anatomy and physiology, and I taught academic biology in this fashion, Mr. Hong. And it really does, in some aspects, it mimics 21st century learning in that children will be going on to college and having class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, potentially. The amount of deep learning that can go on in the 80 minutes versus, you know, something very quick in the beginning, try to get the meat of the lesson in, and then try to sort of close very quickly. Again, I mean, my experience is in science, but for any hands-on type of classroom, or really any classroom that is not hands-on, it can become hands-on because you've got that time to really delve into whatever content you are studying. So I found great success. Have hundreds of Facebook friends who are physicians and lawyers, and they've done very well coming out of an AB block.
And if I can add on to that, and I know there's a lot of other questions, one of the things that's challenging for students right now is to have to think really deeply in, you know, AP Bio for 42 minutes, and in 5 minutes now they have to be thinking about math, and 42 minutes later they have to be able to apply all of this to English, and 42 minutes later they have to move to the next content area. You can even think about in your own work when you jump from meeting to meeting to meeting and you don't have a minute to kind of think in between, or really analyze what it was that you just did at that first meeting. It's very easy to almost kind of forget about that first meeting because you're so quick into the next meeting. And so the same holds true for our students, that allowing them the time during their period to comprehend and synthesize everything that's happening, we strongly believe will increase their ability to retain the instruction during that period.
And just to build on what Ms. Tibbetts said, one of this started years ago, and there's been a lot of research with a lot of students and staff. And ironically, it came out of me meeting with student leaders in a discussion of that 9-period day and what it felt like. And I literally became a student for a day, and I put on my sweatshirt and my jeans and I followed through it. I went through that period day and we talked about it. And many students said they felt exactly how Ms. Tibbetts said. 8 classes, 8 homeworks, multiple tests or assessments that may take place. And really it came out of us saying, is the 8-period day or 9-period day that we have right now in 42 minutes optimal? And really the students told us that they felt that this longer. And then we've also talked to schools across the country and locally, site visits that we had. And there was a lot of work that got in with students and staff having these discussions. And it's not 100%, but there is a strong consensus that moving in this direction is a benefit for our students.
And Dr. Vanelli, you also had feedback from parents, correct?
Correct. And this all started with the initial question was very simple. It was, is the current 9-period day the optimal schedule? And the overwhelming was no. All stakeholders felt that the answer was no, and more instructional time will be beneficial, and really links in with our work that we've done with Danielson, our student-centered learning and our personalized learning. So it really fits into what we are doing currently in teaching our children.
Lewu?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. I saw Lori's hand, Heather's hand, and Susanna and Jeff. So Lori, then Heather, then Susanna, then Jeff. Lori, you have the floor.
I definitely see the benefits of this, and I know some of the things we talked about with certain subjects, getting some extra time. I can tell you as a parent, I think it's a lot easier for kids not to have 6 different tests in a day. So I'm admittedly a fan. I just had one question. When we talk about double periods, like your verbal thing or ILA, things like that, how does it affect something like that? I mean, this is great. I'm just curious, does that have any negative impact on a double period going to 82 minutes? I mean, I guess it's losing technically 2 minutes. Is that correct?
Dr. Vanelli, you want to speak to the scheduling?
Sure, this is one sample. We had an 82-minute, 83-minute, and an 84-minute was where we're at, depending on where you give it with lunch. If you went to the 84 and a 30.
Mike, you're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go.
So as I said before, I know what you heard, but right now this goes with an 82. We are right in that spot of an 82, 83, or 84 minute as a possibilities with the flexibility. An 84 would be an apples to apples across the board with a 30-minute lunch. An 83 would give a 34-minute lunch, and an 82 would give a 38-minute lunch. But so the fact of the matter is that ability to have that would be in apples to apples with your courses. The only change, and I think Lee Wu asked this earlier about AP courses, there's one spot with our AP Sciences where we had double periods. We would have the ability to move it to a 7.5 credit course where those students could meet twice in the first half in the first semester and once in the second semester. And that really would benefit our AP students on getting that information front loaded to prepare for their AP test.
And Mrs. Lax, if I can just add on to that, the double period that you're speaking of as far as verbal goes is not a model that is currently used at Churchill or the high school. That's a Hammersholt Elementary model. So there is no impact as far as minutes for any of those types of courses that you might be thinking about.
Ms. Lax, what it might do though is in the transition from Hammersholt to Churchill is it would a little bit more closely mimic what the students have with the double period for subjects like ILA in terms of the length of time that they would be meeting with their English class at Churchill in that transition.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe it was Susanna, then Heather, then Jeff.
Thanks. I first want to thank everybody else for all the questions because those questions are really helpful to gain a more thorough understanding of this. And I have to say, when I watched the video, I was very excited about it because I kind of, you look at these small segments of time and the kids running around the hallways. That's a stressful day. And I also liked the longer lunch period, because kids are just so stressed out these days. And my question had to do with, we're not the guinea pigs. And I think Dr. Vanella and Dr. Atkins both addressed it somewhat. And I just want some more assurance that we're not the guinea pigs, that this is a deeply researched issue, that we speak to those districts that are doing it. If you can talk a little bit about if there are any other leading New Jersey districts that are doing this and what kind of downsides have they seen? I mean, certainly I see a lot of upsides. I was very excited when I saw it, and Liwa and Lori had some really good questions. I just want to make sure we don't have any blind spots that we've missed and take advantage of benchmarking and talk to others that have done it.
Yeah, so Susanna, as you know, Matt is just recently coming from the high school. So he's been part of the process for the last couple of years in researching this with Mike and the staff. And I know that they've, reviewed a lot of professional literature. As Mike said, they've looked at national models as well as local models and did site visits. Mike or Matt, if you want to add on to that.
Sure. So what we did was in this process is we created a committee, our Instructor Learning Committee, and we had subgroups, and each department really worked with that and worked with students. So they would come to our committee, they would go back to that department, they would bring a list of all these questions, we would make contact. We examined Montgomery, West Windsor, Princeton, Hunterdon Central, Westfield, and then we also researched others across the country. To see what their schedules were. And it really came down to this being the one that fit the best for us. And I think there was just about every stone was unturned in these discussions with student staff, as well as with our PTSA. So I feel very comfortable with what we've done. I think we are not the guinea pigs. I think we're able to go into this with where we already are at, plus what we've learned. And I think we will be able to be very successful with the transition.
Okay, Heather?
All right, I sort of have a eclectic laundry list here. And I would start by saying, just in my own personal experience, I've been teaching a 90-minute period for years. I completely enjoy that myself. I know it's like a spoiled thing and it's fantastic. I do have concerns about the lack of content or the lack of touching of each class each day, though, for students. I did want to ask actually ask for if there's been research you've been looking at, I would love to read. I really, really would. But I also wanted to ask if we've considered the needs of our special education students at this level, because I know the research says that special education students for retention do need daily contact with the information. And I don't know that every other day, even for an extended time, meets that need. I do have concern about attention span. I mean, the average adult attention span is like 20 to 40 minutes. So it's a lot to keep kids going that long. I know the hustle of the change every 40 something minutes is difficult, but also maintaining for that long is also difficult. I do question about AP classes. I know I was asking earlier today how many actual AP classes we have. Thank you for that information. But AP classes right now are testing every week. And under the current model, kids are looking at 2 contacts with the teacher before every test. That's not a lot of content. When you have questions, there's not a lot of time with your teacher. I mean, there's time, but there's not a lot of daily contact. So you're processing, but you may not actually have the instruction available. I mean, most AP classes, science is excluded, but most AP classes do seem to lend themselves more to direct instruction than, group work and application in class. So that was a concern for me, especially with the speed they go trying to prepare for May instead of June. I also just wanted to ask, just trying to visualize this, how many lunches a day do we have at the high school, and how early would lunches have to start in the day to accommodate a 38-minute lunch?
So,
Heard of the principals.
so right now, Heather, we have 4 lunch periods. In this model, we would go down to 3 lunch periods, and it would be very marginal, the difference in time. It would just about be the same time that lunches would be starting.
And the considerations for our special education students?
With regards to the special needs students, Ms. Goss, we do have ways to implement for where we have anchor programs, such as our BD, ED programs. There are ways that you can schedule so that right now the students currently have an anchor period, period 1 and period 12, that we can set the schedule up where they still have an anchor period, period 1, and then on a B day, the period 5 period, so that if it's a situation where maybe they're starting their day with a class like Pathway to Careers or something of that nature, it can be done so that they receive those on a back-to-back day basis for students in the special needs populations, as well as our programs, special programs that might go out to job sites that they can be kind of scheduled within their own schedule system to work with those programs still on a daily basis.
Thank you. Heather, you asked a few things in there. Was there anything that wasn't addressed?
Yeah.
There was one question about attention span. I think to refer to Dr. Atkins, and one of the pieces in Dr. Bowley's presentation was the professional development in working with teachers to adjust teaching strategies in that 82-minute period or 84-minute period, so that it's not just really extending a 42-minute lecture out to 82 minutes, but setting the table with a introductory activity, getting to the application period, and then coming back together with the feedback loop at the end of the lesson.
Dr. Vanilla, I have a question for you.
Wait a minute, Liwu, I'm sorry, Liwu. We're just trying to go in order. After Heather, Jeff was next.
No, still under Heather's question.
I'm so sorry.
So it's part of Heather's
asking to build off of my question.
Yes.
Okay.
So Dr. Vanilla, you said we will have 3 lunch period instead of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that means for each lunch period, the surface number will jump up about 30%. Is high school cafeteria, as the high school cafeteria have this kind of capacity to serve 30% more students each period?
Yes, it does. And we've been in discussions with Joe Crossfeld in detail throughout this process, discussing this. I will tell you, normally our 11th period lunch is usually one of the smallest lunches based on the issues within the 9-period day scheduling process, where we had a very low number of students within there. Less than 200 kids were usually in that lunch. So you only add those to the other 3 lunch periods, and we would have enough room for each student to sit and eat, and it's enough time to be able to serve and feed all students.
Mike, you would just balance the lunches, right? The 3 lunches that are balanced across the platform.
Yeah, this new schedule makes it a lot cleaner for the scheduling process.
And Dr. Vanella, back to Mrs. Glass's question regarding AP and not seeing them every day. Have you, Mr. Hannes, considered that? Dr. Atkins, in your experience, do you have any comments to add to this?
I can offer one experiential from AP Biology. There were 54 chapters in the AP Biology book that I taught from many years ago. So 54 chapters, right? You think like a chapter test, every week. So what we did was we went to a thematic approach. There were 12 laboratories in AP Biology at the time. It may still be 12 laboratories, and we dove into the material in a thematic approach around each laboratory that was required. So this will be my job in the professional learning, right, to help and support the supervisors, academic supervisors, in looking at the content and finding ways to go about approaching the content so that you could have an experiential activity in every class. So the pacing guides and the manner in which the curriculum is offered would change, as I did many years ago by creating a thematic approach to studying AP Biology, if that's helpful.
That's helpful. I totally see how it can work with AP Sciences. I'm just struggling to see how it can work with AP History, like APUSH and World History. I don't know how you make that content thematic to get prepared for the exam on time. And I really did want to know, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I haven't had the opportunity to have anyone actually in the high school to eat lunch. When do lunches start now?
So on a normal day, they would start at 10:34. At the end of 4th period, period 5 will be in the first lunch. And with the block period, the period 3 would be split into the 3 lunches. It would be approximately about the same time, 10:35, 10:38-ish.
Thank you.
Jeff.
This might have been answered off of Liwu's questions. I thought I heard it in there, and maybe you did respond. Any impact, in any way, of electives, elective availability? Will there be enough time throughout the year to experience several subject matters? What's the impact?
That was a big question in our group. And our specialist teachers actually had those questions and those discussions with teachers from the other schools that we were in contact with. And we did not, from what we were told and what we see within the schedule that we have, no significant impact that would hinder students taking those electives or the arts.
Okay. All right. Good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members have any questions at this time? Okay, most of the questions I had were answered. You all did a great job of asking questions. Just to sum up, I think we probably could use some more information on the impact of special education for the block scheduling. I know there was a question about asking specifically which other high-profile high schools are currently using block scheduling. The impact of not meeting every day, not just academically, but socially and emotionally, I think we could use some more research on. And the thematic approach for AP classes, we could probably use to have fleshed out a bit more. And actually, the only other question I had is either Dr. Valesky or Dr. Boley, will this have any effect on our Flex School program?
In regards to their schedule?
Yes.
Mrs. Tibbetts?
Yeah, Nicole, can you?
Nothing significant adverse.
No, so Ms. Kennard, who oversees the Flex program right now, has been a part of these conversations and has been considering this for the Flex program. The Flex program actually right now is scheduled in a block format. So the students are already doing that, quite honestly, because of staffing purposes, but we have found a lot of benefit for those students. So we think they will fall into this schedule fairly seamlessly.
Dr. Valesky, what is your expectation at this point in terms of next steps for you and the board to develop, discuss, and take consensus? What is your time frame?
Well, we would like to accelerate the time frame. We'd like to get the board's questions answered. But as I stated earlier, Ms. Becker, this would be part of a negotiation with EBEA. We are currently utilizing block scheduling in our current instructional delivery, but that's by agreement with EBEA for the course of the pandemic. So this would require some negotiation with them. But I definitely, as I told the team before we made this presentation, and I think Dr. Boley and all the administrators did a great job tonight.
Yes.
We want to make sure that the board's questions are answered and that everyone is satisfied that this is something that we want you to believe, as we believe. This is something we believe will meet the needs of so many of the students in East Brunswick Public Schools at a variety of spectrums. And especially in our post-pandemic environment, we believe this is a model that will help support our students, not only in their academic pursuits, but in their social and emotional supports as well. So our challenge right now is to get answers for the board. If any board members have any questions, you can filter them to me or Dr. Boley directly, but we want to make sure that we get the answers. And as always, if a board member has a question, we'll filter the answer back out to the entire board. But I would like this to be an organic process that could occur between now and the next board meeting and potentially respond to board members, the entire board, and get those questions answered before our next meeting.
Thank you. Mark 2?
How does this affect the teachers? We've been focusing on the students, but what is the impact on the teachers? Are they succeeding with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So principals, again, if you want to share your experience in working with your staff, alongside your staff in the process, and any feedback you're receiving from your teachers in the buildings now.
I could, with what the feedback that I've been getting is the thumbs up with the fact that they feel that they can go into much deeper discussions. It opens up their pedagogy. With a longer period, they can do different activities. They can reach more students. So it's been the feedback to me at the high school has been rather positive.
Certain elective area teachers in the arts, practical arts, technology courses, classes like woodshop, it allows you to get into projects more into depth. Obviously, it would also still require additional support with looking at pacing guides, the use of the 84-minute period. We are fortunate to have the support of instructional coaches who can work with teachers through our professional learning models that we use at our department meetings and faculty meetings to provide ongoing support as needed as we get feedback from the staff, just like we do from students.
I've also heard from teachers that having less classes a day and a longer period allows them to build deeper relationships with their students and get to know them better.
Thank you.
Any other board? Jeff, did you have another question?
Yeah, real quick.
No, take your time.
With all of the, yeah, it's okay. With all of the schools that you have looked at, which is a great list, I don't know how long they've been doing this, but is there any quantifiable data using assessments, statewide assessments, park, whatever, that would show any type of disparity benefit? Is it, zero? I mean, has that? I'm sure it's been looked at. What's the results of that? Do kids tend to do better in block?
Just quantitatively or qualitatively as well?
Just the on test.
I believe Dr. Boley is quantitatively.
Quantitative, the numbers, the scoring.
Jeff, you're frozen. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Quantitatively. Now, am I back?
Kind of.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're visually frozen. Okay.
Dr. Vanella.
Quantitative data.
Quantitative, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Vanella, I'm not sure in any of the literature, if you recall off the top of your head, any research here, or if you want to look into that and share that.
I think it'd be prudent if I went back with specifics. The general research showed at least even, if not better performance with it. I will tell you, the schools that we talked to using Park as an indicator would not be a good one, because not many of those students in those schools were taking that assessment.
Yeah, and that was a bad example, but you get where I'm going with it. I know it's a horrible example. But any type of quantitatively, something to say, look at these numbers, here were these kids ranked, these are the schools they end up at, whatever. Something we could use that would show a differential.
We'll collect that
average.
So
we'll also add if there's anything qualitatively, because I think how kids feel about the day and their stress level is important to consider as well.
Oh, no, and your presentation on that, I completely agree with. There's nothing I could dispute on that. It would be much better. But I'm just wondering, from the academic impact going forward, is it better? And I'm not suggesting use that even as a reason to change up from this. I'm just curious on its educational impact on a quantitative basis.
No, it's a good question. And I think Susanna was the one who had asked specifically if if you could give us examples of other similar and academically similar level that are using block scheduling. So again, I think that Victor, you could, if you and the team who, yes, did an excellent job tonight, could put together a packet of information based on the questions you've been hearing tonight, that will go a long way towards helping us to be able to come up with even better questions next week.
Yes.
Okay.
Great job, team.
All right, Dr. Bull, anything else to wrap up?
No, thank you.
Thank you all. Great presentation tonight. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. We now have the good of the cause to the public. Members of the public may provide comment at this meeting through Zoom by entering the URL, meeting ID, and password provided into the web browser of your computer that you see before you on the screen. In order to be recognized, use the chat feature, select the Zoom meeting host, then enter and send your name to the host. You will be recognized to speak when your name is called. Individuals will be invited to speak in the order in which we have received your request. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Participants will be limited to 3 minutes each. Is there anyone wishing to address the board tonight? Bernie, is there anyone in the queue?
There is no one in the queue.
Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public portion. Moving on to our regular agenda tonight, we have the Board of Education agenda. I'd like to combine items 1 through 7. I'm going to ask for a motion for that, but I'd like to know if there's anything anyone would like separated out. Seeing none, can I please have a motion for items 1 through 7 on the Board of Education agenda? Moved by Lori,
Second.
Again,
second by Liwu. Is there any discussion on any of these items? And Mark Colangelo, I just want to call your attention to items 1 and 2, minutes for November and December. Seeing no discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes, sir.
You want to vote? I believe we had talked about you abstaining on items 1 and 2 because they represent minutes of meetings you weren't at.
Right, I abstain for items 1 and 2.
and then for the remainder of the items?
Yes,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you.
So noted. Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our community programs agenda, we have one item on the agenda tonight. Can I please have a motion for contract award? I'm sorry, who was that?
Lori.
Lori, moved by Lori, second
Yes.
by Jeff. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry, but some member of the public, I think somebody needs to mute themselves. There's just a bit of background noise. Thank you so much. Okay. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to our curriculum and instruction agenda. Can I like to have a motion to combine items 1 through 5, but first I want to know if there's any item anyone would like separated out. Seeing none, I'd like to have a motion to combine items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Moved by Liwu,
Second, Jeff.
second by Jeff. Is there any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Mark, just unmute yourself, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our facilities agenda. I'd like to have a motion to combine items 1 through 4. I'd like to know if there's any item that anyone would like separated out. Seeing none, can I please have a motion? I'm sorry, did somebody say yes?
so
Mark?
moved.
Oh, okay. It's moved by Mark too. Do we have a second?
Second, Lori.
Second by Lori. Thank you. This is not a roll call vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to our financial services agenda, I'd like to combine items 1 through 19. Is there any item anyone would like separated out? Seeing none, can I please have a motion to combine items 1 through 19?
So moved, Lori.
Move, Jeff.
Moved by Lori, second by Jeff. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes,
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to our human resources agenda, I'd like to combine items 1 and 2. Is there anything anyone wishes separated out? Seeing none, can I please have a motion to combine items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Moved by Liwu,
Second.
second by Heather. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Ms. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax, Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the student services item, can I please have a motion to combine items 1 and 2? Moved by Lori,
Second.
second by Liwu. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Colangelo,
Yes.
Mrs. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Sismar,
Yes.
Mrs. Guas,
Yes.
Mr. Hong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lax,
Yes.
Mr. Winston,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Before I ask for committee reports or a student rep report, speaking of committees, it is always my feeling that we get our committees together as soon as possible so that the business of the district can go on. With that effect, I would like to ask Bernie to please send everybody a copy of the current committee list.
Will do.
If you would all be so kind as to send me an email and let me know of your current committee assignments, which ones you are still interested in staying on and what you would like changed. And I'd like to invite and encourage all of you to perhaps go out of your comfort zone. And if there's a committee you haven't served on, an area that you feel you would like to learn more about, that would be a great committee for you to let me know that you would like to serve on. I would like to have all responses back by Sunday so that Lori and I have the time to discuss. My goal is to get the administration, the committee assignments by Monday, Tuesday, the latest, so that we may continue. We are in the middle of negotiations. We are in the middle of budget season. We have to get the committees going. So again, Bernie will send you the current committee assignments. Please look at them. Give me your feedback by Sunday. Let me know what you'd be interested in and what you're not interested in continuing to serve on. And then Lori and I will get back to the administration by Monday or Tuesday. Dr. Valesky, does that work for you? You're all choked up, I can see.
No, I tried to use my space bar to speak and it didn't work. But yes, that works for me. Thank you.
Okay. And now, our student rep, Tony, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy
Hope
New
you
Year,
and your
President.
family had a pleasant holiday and wishing you a Happy New Year. Tell us what's going on.
Yes, Happy New Year and Happy Holidays to all of you as well. I think I can speak on behalf of almost every senior that we are largely relieved. Early January normally marks the final college deadlines, and it's nice to be done, or at least close to done, as there are still some staggering deadlines. But yes, the process is largely complete. I'll try and keep my report brief.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
The main thing that I wanted to talk about was the role that politics and the events that occur play into the student experience. And normally, like under normal circumstances, they exist in two completely separate spheres. And I think this is largely important and really good because it doesn't let the chaos and the turmoil of politics hinder the progress of education. And then when big events occur, it's a little odd as a student to continue to do homework when it seems more pressing things are occurring. But the thing that kind of supports this, and the thing that students need to understand, is that some teachers have to operate on a really tight schedule, especially those that have national deadlines such as advanced placement exams, and they simply can't afford to come to breaks. So despite what occurs, there still needs to be continuity, and there's still options and outlets for these students to kind of get these ideas and out of their head and talk about what happened. And in person, there's normally conversing, and some classes serve as an outlet. But I just wanted to bring this up because it's an interesting balance between addressing things that occur but also not letting it dominate. what we're trying to achieve here at school. And another big thing to take away is that these terrible times and challenges, like either the political events or the pandemic, they still don't divide or slow down our community. As Dr. Valesky mentioned, the toy drive occurred as part of the organization from class and student council. And this was largely successful in providing toys to disadvantaged children over the holidays. And this occurred despite the pandemic and despite the rising cases. And overall, I think it's just a great testament to the tendency of our community and our student body to stick together and improve as opposed to drift apart. And no matter the degree of difficulties that we face or the types of challenges that arise, I don't think that will change. That was what I wanted to talk about for there. And then on the topic of block scheduling that was brought up, I'm sure I'll bring this up later in other committee reports once I also get the opinion of other student leaders. But I wanted to personally vote or say my advocacy of the block scheduling. I do empathize with, I believe it was Ms. Guas that brought up the fact that we won't see each teacher every day. And I know to you guys, it may seem that passing time, those 5 minutes in between each class, is just opportunities for mischief, but some students, including me, see it as a chance to connect with other students that I might not have in class. But I think these negatives are largely outweighed by the benefits brought up by Dr. Bully and her team. And one of the things that I feel like to students is going to be really important that it might not be visible right now, but is the fact that you don't need to do homework for each class every day. So this gives a lot of chance for students to have intellectual developments outside of just the school. And it also gives students the chance to, you know, time manage in a different way that is more fitting of what is seen in college. So you don't have to do math homework on the day that you're assigned the math homework, you can time manage and you can do other things accordingly. And I'm a little uniquely adapted to this because I took 2 lab sciences last year. So I ended up having a 90-minute instructional period for 4 out of every 5 school days. So in terms of the attention span issues, it was an adjustment at first, but I largely got accustomed to it. And I thought it was very successful in providing at least a continually educational, but also like interactive experience. And yeah, those are some of the big things about block scheduling that appeal to me. I'm sure I'll talk about this later when I also hear the opinions of other students. But yeah, that's it for my student report.
Thank you so much. That was very well put. Greatly appreciated. And we always need to hear, want to hear, but need to hear the students' viewpoint. So thank you for representing that.
Thank you, President Becker.
Board members, committee reports, information items for the good of the cause for the board. Lori?
You'll notice with your agenda, you have the building and grounds minutes from December 10th of 2020. It's nice to see that where we're not in the buildings, there's a lot of work going on in the different buildings. So you'll notice a whole bunch of project updates. Another thing that's nice to see continuing, and I know we approved, is some PTA gifts. You know, we talk about what we can do within the confines of the budget. So you will notice that a buddy bench will be installed at Lawrence Brook as a gift to their PTA, and the water bottle filling stations when the kids get back to school, which I love because I'm not a big fan of water fountains, so children have the ability to hydrate. So just take a look. It's in your packets, but just wanted to draw your attention to that.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else?
So the curricular committee, we had a meeting on November 30. So I just want to thank Dr. Bodie and her team for the great job. It's a really great pleasure working with you guys. And I thank you very much for providing new class and update class to our students. Thank you.
Anyone else? Bernie, do you see anybody that I don't?
I do not.
Okay. We do have a need for a closed session. So the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. And those items we intend to discuss are on tonight's agenda. Length of closed session is estimated to be 1 hour. I'm so sorry, but I think somebody needs to mute themselves. Thank you so much. The length of the closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which a public meeting of the board shall reconvene and actions will not be taken. Can I please have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved, Jeff.
Moved by Jeff.
Second, Susanna.
Second, Susanna. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Board members, just want to remind you, please leave this meeting and log into the closed session meeting. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us tonight. Have a safe evening.